All right, everyone. Welcome back to another Sound Tank, Pteranodon Media Sound Tank Special Edition Show and Tell What the Hell. And of course, it's Godzilla time again, so we're going to be covering a lot of Godzilla, or we have been covering a lot of Godzilla. And today, once again, I brought our resident Godzilla expert, Derek. And we're going to be talking. This is actually one of Derek's figures here. And this is a Trendmasters Godzilla. And I'm going to get a little bit close here and try to focus a little bit better. There you go. And I did some fixer-uppers to it. Just kind of glued the head and the tail back in place using regular super glue. But that's what all that Derek wanted. So, and I did fix the electronics on this thing. I opened it up, cleaned it up a little bit. And he still makes noise. He's motion activate. Oh, there you go. Turn that off. Motion activated Godzilla. One thing I noticed about this Derek was that he's got kind of a little bit of a sticky residue to it.
Yeah. Man, I had this figure since I was a kid, and I was stupid enough back then to break off the head, because otherwise he would have awesome lights in his eyes, and his mouth would light up red.
Oh, the mouth too, huh?
Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, all the wiring and all that was gone long ago. So if I would maybe be interested in getting another one, you know, with not broken and have all the proper electronics.
A functioning one?
A functioning one. That would be great.
Mm.
But this one, yeah, I don't think I can get rid of it. It has some sentimental value to
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
Because my aunt gave it to me, so I don't think I can just give it away too easily.
Yeah, of course. And it's hard for me to get rid of Godzilla toys as it is, you know, and in that trend. Now, these are the first, not the very first Godzilla toys that I owned. I didn't actually have this particular Godzilla, but Trendmasters is an American company that started producing a line of Godzilla figures, and they also did John Carter of Mars, which I owned as well, because at that time I was already reading John Carter of Mars.
Trendmasters?
Yeah, Trendmasters did John Carter. I believe they did.
They did Independence Day.
Independence Day.
I had some of those. I may still have one. The big alien that made the noise, and he opened up, and there was a little alien.
I had the about like the 7-inch one or whatever.
That one was huge.
And I think they did Voltron. They did a redo of Voltron. They used some of the original molds, and I think they made their own Voltron later on, if I'm not mistaken. This is again now. This is a time in the mid 90s where I was excited to get these because I had Power Rangers as well, and they scaled about the same with these, and it was very exciting for me to actually get giant monster, giant robot toys that had not been as available throughout the 80s. Throughout the 80s, we had gone through He-Man, Thundercats, Transformers, Imperial G.I. Joe, Star Wars, Imperial Godzillas, and then and then Ninja Turtles was a big line. So all the figures were of a smaller scale. Now, about the time that Jurassic Park started coming into the picture, maybe I think people were kind of toying with the idea of bringing back Godzilla products. And I think that kind of went in line with all of this. And to get these, you know, big monster or big dinosaur toys was pretty cool again, because now these were a lot different than the toys that we had in the 80s, in that these were electronic and these had a lot more detail, many more details. And of course, the 90 brought in a certain particular aesthetic, which presented muscles. Star Wars had muscles. Ninja Turtles had muscles.
Everybody had muscles.
Everyone, and even Godzilla. You can tell here he's got a little bit of the biceps. Now, I wish I had the large. I think you said you had the larger Gigan.
Oh yeah,
figure.
I have the Gigan, the Space Godzilla. The
I
Mecha
love that.
Godzilla. Yeah, yeah.
I love that Space Godzilla. It's still one of my favorite toys, and it has it's three pieces to the tail, right?
I think
Or three different. I think it's three.
it's either 3 or 2.
Yeah, it's a huge long tail, and it's this scale too. I need to bust that out one of these days and talk about my Space Godzilla figure.
Yeah. Did you already say that this was the original King of the Monsters line?
I believe so.
Okay, because obviously, after that line came Godzilla Wars. That was a big one when I was a kid. I saw them all everywhere.
Yeah, I saw these in the store. I still may have a Godzilla that's in package of the smaller scale, with a red button in the middle. Now, this is, of course, motion activated because there's a lot of motion activated stuff out there. Now, as far as the design goes, we were discussing this earlier, but I think it looks very similar to the late '80s and a little bit of the early '90s Godzilla. What are the design aspects do you see from that? What you got that more ingrained into your memory? What how would you compare this to the actual Toho '80s and '90s Godzilla? Because that's a lot of what I'm seeing there.
Right. You're not wrong, and there's actually a little more that I see too. That like you said, so I can tell you already. As you may know, facial wise is like pretty much all the second series Godzillas. More specifically, from Biolante to pretty much the end of that series, that face, pretty much the same kind of face. Because, again, 84 is one of my favorite designs.
Mm-hmm.
And because that face looked more like the original, except more updated at the time.
Yeah.
But this one, he looks like that face, it looks like the Chinese dragon a bit. He has that kind of face. The nose, yeah. And
the ears.
The eyebrows, ears. Yeah, so definitely the head. And then what I noticed actually is that this arm right here and the way it's posed, that reminds me actually of 1954 Godzilla. There is always be a shot where he's breathing fire and he like turns his head and then he raises his hand like that. And then that's what that reminds me of.
So one thing I wanted to point out is that there are many generations of Godzilla fans. One person recently pointed out that I was getting all the names wrong, which I find to be humorous because back when, I'm a child of the 80s, so when Godzilla was coming out, I started watching Godzilla in the 80s. Of course, there are people that were watching Godzilla for many, many, many years before, decades. And there seems to be this kind of attitude nowadays with the internet where a lot of people want to correct you or they want to say, well, I know about Godzilla and I know, but the thing is, it's like, you got to understand that we didn't see actual Japanese dialogue till maybe late 90s when DVDs started coming out. Everything was dubbed and a lot of the names were mispronounced. A lot of people didn't say the names. You'd only see the movie once. You didn't have them readily available. The one that you'd see a lot was Godzilla vs. Megalon. That's one that you'd see a lot because that was always at the video store. The video store, maybe Mothra I rented a few times. They didn't show them a whole lot on TV. It was very slim pickings. Now, the 90s Godzilla movies, you didn't see those at all. You couldn't find those. They weren't released till later on. The original 1954 Godzilla, the Japanese one, nobody saw that till at least statewide or stateside. You didn't see.
I remember that. I remember in 2004, so the 50th anniversary of Godzilla. That's when they finally released the original Japanese Gojira in the United States. I remember it because I remember watching a trailer for it online on like the shitty like old QuickTime.
Yeah.
That's what I saw. So it really has been that recent. You can call it 10 years.
It is recent, and it just kind of, there's this cynical like attitude where people feel like they own Godzilla and they've seen it for a long time. It's like nobody's seen Godzilla for a long time except people that are like maybe 50 plus. But it's like even like home video, to be such an expert in Godzilla, home video wasn't like, stuff like Godzilla wasn't really available till maybe the 90s. You can start getting some of the older Godzilla movies in marathons. Like me, I'd watch marathons on TV. The first time I saw a whole bunch of Godzilla movies was in the mid '80s, and on a black and white TV. So for the longest time, I thought they were all in black and white. So mid '80s, they had they had what they didn't even have major cable like networks that would show this kind of stuff. It was on like Sunday Night Movies or Monster Movie Mayhem or whatever. The local TV programming would show these Godzilla movies, so you were limited to that. But I find it interesting. I mean, a lot of franchises. There's a lot of hardcore Godzilla fans out there, and there's a lot of negativity. So I hope I'm excited for the new Godzilla movie. Hopefully, we can bring some more positivity to the fandom, as it were. But it's not just Godzilla. I see this happening with Transformers. I see this happening with video games. I see this happening with Masters of the Universe. I'm guilty of that too, this whole elitism. But I don't claim that with Godzilla. So again, anyone that sees my future Godzilla videos, I don't apologize for getting stuff wrong. I'm having fun with it, and I'm kind of aware that I do say names wrong, and I do it on purpose a lot of times. Just because, let's take Star Wars, for instance. Someone corrected me when I mentioned Walrus Man. And saying, well, actually, it's Ponda Baba or Ponda Boo. It's like, no. That name came out way later on. When we're toys, it was fucking called Walrus Man. It's fucking Walrus Man, and that's it,
If only I knew what you were talking about.
Walrus Man is the guy in Star Wars that he's in the bar with in the Mos Eisley Cantina with Luke Skywalker. And he's a walrus-looking guy.
Is he the one with like the ball sack?
Yes, he's the one with the ball sack.
Baboon.
Yes.
That
the one who doesn't like Luke, and the other guy explains to him.
He doesn't like you.
Nobody had names. He was just called Walrus Man. But what happens with fandoms is that they over the years they just keep. People start making their own stories. It's fan fiction, or they decide that they're gonna retroactively insert.
It's like Wilro Hood.
Wilro Hood, man. Okay. So again, if that sounded negative to you guys, I apologize. But I wanted to share some of these are the Godzilla toys that I kind of grew up with, and Derek grew up with as well. Now, aside from the Imperial Godzillas, but everybody had those. But this is the first line where you could actually get all the different other monsters and kaiju.
Yeah, because before this, all you had is the Imperial, and they had mainly Godzilla, but they had a Gigan too. But those looked really.
They were
red. While they were interesting, they weren't not saying that this is totally movie accurate, but I mean, this looks a lot more. How should I put it? Well,
it looks a lot closer than anything else that had been released up to that point with regard to... This was the coolest looking Godzilla toy that had ever been released.
Oh, yeah.
It's the closest to any Godzilla. It had the best... you see this and it looks like Godzilla. So this looked... As far as I'm concerned, someone with vague recollection, this looks... immediately familiar, and it also it's like, wow, this looks exactly like Godzilla. But if you want to get into details, we're going to move on. I did want to show off one of mine. This is Derek's here. Now, this is one of mine. This is also from the same line, same company, same brand.
Is he in the frame there?
He's in the frame. Okay. I need to move this a little bit back, and maybe kind of... Ooh, wait. Oop, there you go. Actually, I should have done that a long time ago. There you go. So what we have here, and I'll close up to him a little bit more, is another Trendmasters Godzilla, walking, talking Godzilla. And I'm going to put this back down here to get him a little bit closer, to give you an idea of what... And now, I'm going to state, firstly, that this does not work at the moment. I tried opening him up. And his batteries were incredibly corroded. This thing had exploded. They had not been replaced. I bought this I think like at a flea market or something. So, and I never bothered to take him out, but this is interesting. He's got like a very, and I'm glad this is actually really well preserved, because I've had toys with similar skin, plastic, or kind of a vinyl like material, soft vinyl. And you can make him talk here. Bah, 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 bah. And it's made. He's supposed to be walking and moving around and making noises. Now I'm gonna try to fix him. I'm gonna try to get him working and do a follow-up video with him. But let me open this up just to show you. I can't get the batteries out of this because they're so caked in there. Look how bad that is. Yeah. So I'll do a follow-up video to see if I can actually get this guy to work. If not, fuck it. He looks pretty good. I've had him hanging around my collection, and I brought in some other figures as well. Some of the previously reviewed figures, but I wanted to do some comparisons with them. And let me zoom out there for a second. And what do we have here, Derek? We have
that's the 1968 Bandai Creations Godzilla. Did I already say 1968?
1968 Bandai. No, it wasn't made in 1960. This is a recent figure, but it's made to depict the 1968. This is a recent purchase here. This is the 1954, made to look like the 1954 Godzilla, with the eyes that actually this eye's looking, the eyes that look down.
The eyes that look down. I mean,
sometimes they look back. It looks like they look back, like that where he's looking at his shoulder.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, very interesting figure here. They all look like Godzilla, right? So now here's the other thing that we were discussing earlier too, was scale. Now I'll let you handle this, Derek.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So pretty much, except for that 1968, this is pretty close to scale as far as these different Godzillas go. So all throughout the Showa series, Godzilla was 50 meters tall, or if you want to go by feet, I think it's like 162, 162 feet. I like to go by meters, that's just because that's what they use. So, and I mean, they come out to even numbers for the most part, so that's why I'm going to use meters. So, the Showa Godzillas were all 50 meters, and then the two 80s films, Return of Godzilla and versus Biollante, he shot up to 80 meters.
Right.
So that is pretty representative here. Not exact, but it's pretty close. I've seen all sorts of charts online about a lot of people have done like size comparisons, and this is about pretty close. Like the 50 meter one compared to 80 would be like about like up to his chest or nipple if he had one.
Mm-hmm.
And then so that the two 80s films, he was 80 meters, and then the next film after that, versus King Ghidorah in 91, he shot up to 100 meters, which I think is pretty close here with this this Godzilla right here, and this about the same. It's pretty close because like it would be like underneath his chin, like this size. So
okay,
that's pretty, roughly speaking. And then, so at this point, this 100-meter Godzilla was like the biggest Godzilla ever at the time.
Okay.
And then Legendary came along and said, no, you know what? We're going to make a even bigger Godzilla. I know this one is from the upcoming King of the Monsters.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure they'll keep him the same size, which is...
No, they actually said they made him larger.
Did they?
Yeah, they made him larger. They made him larger than Shin Godzilla.
Are you serious?
Yes. They've made him larger. They wanted to one-up it.
Well, goddamn. I guess I'm going to have to do some reading. I had only been keeping up with minor spoilers this time, because usually I read everything spoilers so that I go into the film not wanting to be surprised. But, well, now that I know that, I guess this one isn't so much in scale now. But if we pretended that this one was the Legendary, like the 2014 Godzilla, then this would be in scale, because he was 108 meters roughly.
So he's an approximate scale then.
Approximate scale, yeah, I would say.
Now I got the Final Wars Godzilla, and he's about this size right here too.
Yeah.
So you said he would be pretty accurate as well.
Yeah,
The Final Wars Millennial Godzilla, as I call him.
because
You get the names wrong all the time. He's not Millennial Godzilla. God damn it!
yeah, you gotta have the glasses.
You can't say the names right. You don't know nothing.
The big glasses. He's gotta have the man bun. But yeah, no. Final Wars Godzilla was 100 meters as well, so that would be in scale with this pretty perfectly.
Wow.
And then the oddball of the bunch is him, and
he's a little bit bigger than what he's supposed to be. Right?
he's like, I would put him at like 60 meters, and that would be like the GMK Godzilla. Like if this was the GMK Godzilla, that would be in scale with this. But he's not. He's a 68, and he's the oddball. But, can't be perfect all the time, I suppose.
Wow. So now, if like I've decided, there's a lot of different. I was getting concerned because of scales, and I'm like, well, I have this. I have these. Some of the 6-inch scale Godzillas, the 6-inch Bandai figures, I realize that are not in scale with each other. And that's my main concern. So it's like I need to come up with maybe a chart. Like if I want to get a size accurate Ghidorah, I'd probably have to go with the Trendmasters one.
No, definitely.
So let's say this is your typical 6-inch Godzilla. You get a Ghidorah, who's probably going to be that's probably going to be his size there, right?
Yeah, well, I guess it also depends on which incarnation.
Yeah, that's true.
Because the 90s one, there's a long shot, beautifully done, by the way. You can clearly see the size difference. The Ghidorah in the 91 film is pretty much dwarfs Godzilla. He's almost a whole like height taller than Godzilla. Of course, those are his necks, but still, And then, whereas in the Showa films, he wasn't really that much taller. Like he was always hunched over. So I mean, of course, I can understand because it was a heavy ass suit and everything. There's a lot of going on with it, but yeah, it's funny because the official Toho stats, that's another thing that doesn't make sense. The official Toho stats for some of these guys are way off.
Really?
Like, way off as in when you look at it in the films, like, how do they come up with that number? So, for example, they put Angirasu.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
They put him at 60 meters tall. But he crawls, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, what the hell?
Yeah. He crawls like a baby.
He crawls like a baby. And then they put King Ghidorah, the original. They put him as 100 meters tall. But when you look at any of the films, he's always hunched over, and like even his necks, they're just a little bit over Godzilla. And it's like, how do they? Yeah. And then another thing that actually bothers me about that is that they put Gigan at 65 meters, and this will be documented everywhere, even on the back of the movie, the covers. But Hedra, the final form Hedra, is 60 meters, and you see in that film, okay, that makes sense, because he's pretty big.
He is pretty big, yeah.
But they put Gigan at 65, they put him taller than that, but he's just the same size when you see in the movie. So yeah, size inconsistencies, whether on screen or in figures, it's kind of inevitable, unfortunately.
So to wrap this up, Derek, I don't know. I don't know if we had a point with all this, but
Yeah, that's kind of.
but this is just a fun little review because I think we covered all bases. And Trendmasters Godzilla toys. How do you feel about those overall?
They definitely have a nostalgic value. They're. I think you could certainly count them as what's responsible for, like you were saying earlier, for about the fandoms. You could certainly count the Trendmasters line for creating a bigger Godzilla fandom in the States.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, can you imagine what would happen if we never had these toys? Would as many people in the States be as into Godzilla as they are?
I don't know. That's a good question. That is a good question because I think it was part of my generation as a teenager getting these Trendmasters, but part of the community now I do see are a little bit younger than me, and or older than me, um, that are very vocal and strong with. Now I'm happy with Godzilla like being Godzilla. You know, I'm happy just watching any Godzilla, and I don't get too wrapped up with you know, design or scale or anything like that. Not saying it's a bad thing because I'm like that with other franchises. Um, but I think Trendmasters to me was incredible. Like I think those were just amazing toys. I'm glad it happened. I don't know. You could be right about that. It could be a lot of people. There were some people that probably had a vague familiarity with Godzilla, and Trendmasters is what really solidified their deep interest. So and that's what I said. That's what I want to know. If there's anyone that's watching this video, was Trendmasters responsible for your deep interest in the whole Godzilla fandom? If so, let me know. I'd be very interested to know what your thoughts. Because Trendmasters, I'd like to get some more Trendmasters and do another video on Godzilla and bring up Mecha Godzilla and Space Godzilla and talk about those and because I remember someone had mentioned that one time at a Transformer convention I was at. Someone mentioned Trendmaster Godzilla and I got really excited because I'm like, wow, there's other people that were into Trendmaster. So anyway, folks, that's another Godzilla episode for Show and Tell What the Hell. Thanks for watching, and you all, wait, what was it again? Oh yeah, we'll see you later on. Ah!